we embrace how we love each other and how we treat each other and what we're trying to do collectively as a people.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Hi, my name is Candice Raynor. I am the director and faculty in residence of the Afrikan Heritage House at Oberlin College. And I teach courses in Africana Studies. The Afrikan Heritage House is the Black Cultural Center at Oberlin College, where we celebrate many holidays, Kwanzaa being one of them. Coming up, we're preparing to do an event for the students next week before they leave for the holidays. So I'd like to introduce Mr. and Mrs. Myers and welcome you to the conversation. And please ask me whatever you'd like to know.
Well, it was interesting that we got some pages that told us a little bit about Kwanzaa history, because it is not anything that Jim and I were ever educated in or taught in our years of school. And the pages that were printed for us helped us understand the 7 principles and exactly what Kwanzaa is. Could you recap that for us?
Kwanzaa is a cultural holiday. It's not a religious holiday. It was invented, or not invented, I should say, it was created in 1966 by Maulana Karenga, who is an Africana Studies professor at Cal State Long Beach out in California, and an activist in the Black Power movement, the later part of the Civil Rights movement. And so it was created as a way for African Americans to be in touch with their African roots and have some connection, feel a connection, but also feel a connection to Black people all around the world and the common struggles and the common hopes and principles and ideals which to live our lives by, to help attain the goals that Black people are trying to attain as far as equality and other, there's all this civil rights things folks were fighting for then and still today. So that is kind of the root of the holiday. And so because it talks a lot about it's based in knowing the roots of where we come from, which of course a lot of folks who were enslaved did not know their roots, where in Africa they came from. So Dr. Karenga made the 7 principles. He chose the 7 principles that are already in existence, which are collectively called the Nguzo Saba. And these terms, Nguzo Saba, and each principle within the Nguzo Saba are all Swahili words, which are East African, mainly Kenya, one of the most widely spoken languages in Africa. And so sometimes people get confused and think it's an African holiday, but it's African American, but it was purposely incorporating some African terms so that we feel some kind of connection. And a lot of it goes back to the harvest, the celebration of harvest. So you see there's a whole setup, which I brought some pieces I can show you when we celebrate Kwanzaa that include usually like a piece of corn or other produce that represent the harvest, books that represent learning your history. There's a lot of aspects to it, but it's a cultural holiday where we embrace who we are, where we come from, and our community as we are, and how we love each other and how we treat each other and what we're trying to do collectively as a people as far as gaining our rights.
As I read the 7 principles, what was just clear to me is that these principles are good for everyone. There's nothing about them that makes them African any more than American. They are just basic lifetime principles, I think. And I just found it interesting. I mean, I'm 85 years old and I had no idea what Kwanzaa was until this week, just getting into this study. And I think it's too bad, because I think this is a very unifying. Even the first one is unity. And I think the whole unity thing is obvious in all of these 7 principles.
Absolutely, absolutely. I didn't grow up celebrating it either. Um, because it came from activists uh, in an urban center, it kind of spread more, I would say, in Black urban centers, on the West Coast, in the Midwest, in the Northeast. I'm from the South. I grew up more in the Martin Luther King part of the civil rights movement. So I didn't know what it was either, not actually until I came to Oberlin. And it became part of my job to teach it. Did I really learn about the holiday? And you're right. And we talk about the principles in Nguzo Saba as universal, that they are, they are principles that all humans should live by. And I'm glad that you found that connection, because that's certainly part of what we talk about in celebrating the holiday, is that aspect of this is what we expect from everyone, what we hope from everyone who we meet. But absolutely, it's now, in the past few years, the holiday has started to get more popular. More people are starting to learn about it, which is really exciting.
Do you think that many people regard it as a religious holiday?
I do. I think because of when it happens. I think people think, oh, it's December, so there's Kwanzaa. So there's Kwanzaa and Christmas and Hanukkah, and so I think because of the time of year, people assume, and because it's not as widely known, I think people assume, oh, it must be some African religious holiday, and it's something that we even deal with within the Black community. A lot of Black folks, here in general, are Christians, and we say, you grew up like, oh, we don't do that, we're Christian. It's like, well, you don't have to choose. It's not a religious holiday. It's but it is often confused. I know I definitely had to explain that to my own family when I started to celebrate it.
Right. And I think about some of the relationships that our family has with people from Haiti. And I wonder, in Haiti, is this taught?
I have no idea. I would hope so. I would love to know. I do know that a lot of international students coming to Oberlin from East Africa, where a lot of the terms we use for the holiday come from, are not really familiar with it. And so I definitely think it is most prevalent in the United States, it being created in the United States. I think it's maybe just starting to get popular. Not to say there aren't some people in Haiti who might be aware of it. Certainly, you certainly learn about it if you're in Africana studies, if any kind of. So I'm sure there's some scholars in Haiti who certainly know about it, but I don't think it's widely celebrated outside of the United States.
One candle is lit each evening, and the appropriate principle is discussed. So I guess it goes through the list of the 7 principles to come down to each of the candles. Do you want to tell us something more about that?
Sure. So I have my, so I'll show you. This is the Kinara. They have all kinds of designs, just similar to menorahs using Hanukkah. There are all kinds of different designs for candle holders, but this is a Kinara. This is what this Swahili for candle holder. And the unity candles, the Black candle, it is in the middle. And that's lit on the first night, which, as you said, the principle for the first night is umoja. It's probably the most commonly used principle. The principles of the Afrikan Heritage House at Oberlin are actually also the principles of Kwanzaa. And the students use it all the time. They say, in the spirit of umoja, could you help me with my homework that's due tomorrow? Could you help me with this paper? Like, people use it in like everyday language. It's really funny how the students use it. But yeah, so then we have 3 red candles and 3 green candles. And the red candles represent the struggle, and the green candles represent hope for the future. And so then they're on each side, lit, and these cover the other principles of Kwanzaa, which Kujichagulia, self-determination, Ujima, collective work and responsibility, Ujima, cooperative economics, Nia, that means purpose, Imani means faith, and Kumba is creativity. That's not in order, but those are the principles. And each night, a candle is lit, the principle is explained, or each night, each day. And there's not really a certain time of day that it's done, like in Hanukkah, where you have it at sundown. But usually when each candle is lit, each that day's principle is explained, usually in the form of a story. So to make it easy for children to understand, there's a lot of focus on children in the holiday, making sure, and raising them with these principles, making sure that they have an understanding and learn, very young, the importance of living by these principles that are discussed every day. And so that is kind of the nightly observation. And then at the end, there's the Karamu, which is the feast. There's a big feast at the end, and that is always a lot of fun, a very festive and lively occasion. And we also give gifts during Kwanzaa. And so that's also a plus. It's very exciting. As a Black Jew, I just do all the holidays. Who's also Christian. The whole month of December, I'm gifted. But yes, it is a fun time. So that, and that can also lead to some of the confusion, right? Because there's also the gifts, there's lighting of candles. So it is similar to other religious holidays that are celebrated in December. But those are the main observations as far as what we do, what it looks like on a nightly basis. And it happens from December 26th through January 1st, which I think is really beautiful to bring in the new year with your mind and your spirit on family and community, and trying to live by these principles, that you acknowledge your human principles. There's something that, they're very universal. There's something that we should all strive to live by. So it's really a very nice time.
The first one is unity, right? And the second is self-determination, to define ourselves, name ourselves, create for ourselves, and speak for ourselves. Okay, that's a basic principle, whether you're Black or white, it doesn't matter. And then the creative work and responsibility to maintain our community together and share each other's problems. That's another thing that's just basic principle. Universal, that's right, that's right. It doesn't matter what country you're from or what religion you practice, that still should be a vital part of your living. Oh, cooperative economics. Well, I know there has been a significant push in Ohio for paying attention to Black entrepreneurs and their stores or establishments or whatever, because of all the racial divide that's been going on in this country. And when I think of somebody living in the South, then I think, oh my gosh, talk about racial divide. The people in the South have no idea for how many years the people in the North have strived to live by these principles. Okay, and then to make our vocation the building and developing of our community. Okay, that's kind of a big principle for individuals to undertake, I think. Then the sixth one, creativity, to leave our community more beautiful. I think that is also taught in most schools. I don't know that they call it creativity, but then faith, to believe in our heart in all people, our parents, our teachers, our leaders, and the righteousness and victory of our struggle.
These principles are real, and you know, but what Kwanzaa does is give them is have an opportunity to think about them as they relate to the Black community and the struggle for equality specifically. So when we're looking at, for instance, Umoja, unity seems pretty basic, but you know, so it's but for us as African Americans, it's getting past socioeconomic differences, getting past colorism, it's getting past, you know, all difference in religion, you know, just all the different differences in political beliefs, but just all the different things that can easily divide us, and remember that as a people, as Black people, we're stronger together. And so that then, you know, kind of applies that to, just gives it a more specific focus as it relates to the Black community. It's us sticking together and remembering, even we don't like each other, love each other, we respect each other and we look out for each other, because we do that as a community, because we're supposed to look out for each other. And often historically, Black people have found themselves in situations where, you know, they're the only ones, or like there's no one around to count on. And so having another person who shares the same struggle that you do kind of puts it on you even more. You should understand, if no one else does, what that struggle is like as another Black person. And so just remembering to stay together and not letting all of our individual differences get in the way of us supporting each other and coming together in community. Another example I could give you, I like for Kumba, we talk about creativity, not just for the sake of creating beautiful things, but remembering that arts, Black arts have often been used as a form of resistance, as a form of speaking out, as, you know, a way to express yourself without getting up on a podium or like being a politician. It's just, you know, it's another way that our struggle has moved forward, is, you know, through music, through visual art, through dance, you know, through all the mediums that creativity can allow. So it's also celebrating that aspect of our creativity, and what it has done when we couldn't speak out, using it in other ways. So for example, when folks were enslaved in the South, they sang field songs, and the field songs all had meanings. So if an escape was planned for that night, they would sing a certain song. You know, and so if they got word that someone had made it to freedom, they sang a specific song. And to the master, to the overseer, it just sounds like, oh, they're just singing those Negro spirituals. They don't have any meaning. But to other Black people, it was a way to communicate also. And so I think that's an important part of when we think about Black creativity. It's knowing that we're operating on a lot of different levels. You know, there certainly is the beauty aspect of it. There's the creating beauty to put out into the world for everyone to enjoy, but there's also a very rich history of using our creativity to survive and to fight for our freedom. So I mean, and I could give you examples if you'd like for all the for all of the principles about how we apply those to the community. I love the example you gave about Ujima, about cooperative economics. Is yes, supporting Black businesses is the most obvious way to do that. Whether, you know, it's supporting each other's work, whether it's working together, whether it's pooling our resources to get something done in the community, like whether it's like opening a center or whatever, or like a lot of people do in church, regardless of race. You know, it's like if there's a kid going to college in the church I grew up in, like everyone's going to give a little bit of money to that kid before they go to college, just a little something to kind of help them along the way. And so it just, for all and all the ways that looks. And as you said, a lot of it crosses over, which I wish a lot of people would, or more people would take the time to learn about Kwanzaa, to see that, it is relatable, that it does have, that is something that people of all backgrounds can appreciate. Um, and so, yes, and I'm happy to see across Ohio, as you said, in the last couple of years, that we've had this increase in awareness and encouragement of support of Black businesses. But yeah, so that's another major one that we're seeing. And I guess one more that I will cover that really stands out to me is Nia, which means purpose, which can be kind of general. But one of my favorite applications, especially as someone who advises college students, it's about finding your purpose for yourself, but then also what that purpose means for the community. So say if I want to be a teacher, that's what I want to do, that fulfills me, but it's also keeping in mind, how can me being a teacher help reach the goals of our community at a larger level? Like, what does that mean for the Black community that I'm teaching? And I should go into my teaching with that intention, with like making sure that I am helping, and not just say just Black people, but with the community in mind, with my heritage in mind, and making sure that I am being my best self for my community and for the world, quite frankly. So that's something I always tell the students, like, not just think about what you're doing, what you might want to do for a career, as it will help you, but then what does that mean for you as a member of your community, and whatever community that might be. That, because you're also a member of a global family. And so thinking about your own ideas for yourself, and not just in a very individualistic way, but in a more community-minded way.
What are some of the things that you think that the general public could receive more information to be more in step with this, as not only a Black celebration, but how inclusive it is for everyone? I don't know how we can do that, but that's what we need to do.
Yes, I agree. I mean, it's a holiday, certainly, created by Black folks for Black folks, but I just, the way we do with any holiday that we don't perhaps celebrate because if it's a religious holiday, that we don't practice that religion, whatever, but we can still give people well wishes and have an understanding of it. So when we're at work or at the grocery store or wherever we might find ourselves, just in social settings with people who are celebrating this, being able to have a conversation, being able to be supportive of that, just wishing, like, and not assuming that all Black people celebrate Kwanzaa, because they don't, but when someone does, just wishing them a happy Kwanzaa, and I think people will feel more comfortable doing that if they were more knowledgeable about the holiday themselves. They feel more comfortable speaking on it. Just so we wish people, folks who fast for Ramadan, we wish them a peaceful and restful time as they fast and meditate, and the same thing, we wish people a Merry Christmas and a Happy Hanukkah. It's the same, although I know I'm using religious holidays as comparisons, but they're not. I'm trying to think of a non-religious holiday that's similar. As it has a little bit more, it's a little different than some of the other cultural holidays that are celebrated more widely in the United States. It's not consumer driven at all. It's not about the gift. It's more about the significance. Usually the gifts have cultural significance, so it's not about just like getting the latest thing. I really, it's in a place of its own, kind of, but I think just taking time to learn about it, and then I think would make more people comfortable talking about it, and just wishing people a happy Kwanzaa, or asking them if they are, if they're going to celebrate it, or what they do, or I think just making it just normalizing it more, just talking about it and putting it out there that it's not religious, and that everyone can appreciate it. If you think historically, just during the time that the holiday was created, and I think it just intensified just in those years following, it's kind of like late 60s, starting to kind of disillusionment with the civil rights movement. Black people were not getting the gains that they thought were going to happen. A couple years later, Dr. King is assassinated. By this point, you've already had Malcolm X and others assassinated, Medgar Evers. And it was something as a way to bring us together. And that point in the civil rights movement, you saw a lot of different groups were kind of splintering off with their own ideas about how to achieve civil rights. And I think that was part of the spirit of coming together, was like, hey, we all might have different ideas about how to get there, but we are all still together as one community. And so I felt in some ways that was part of the intent, was to give something for Black people who had different ideas and were not all agreeing with each other, a way for us to come together as a community and still say, hey, we love each other, we want to celebrate each other and support each other, and we might have all these different ideas, but this is something that we can come together around regardless of other beliefs. And so I think it's important to respect that. Just we have different holidays that are celebrated by different groups, and that's okay. We can still be supportive of those people who are celebrating that and being in support of what they're trying to achieve with their celebration. It's interesting. A lot of when people from other countries move here, when Black people from other countries move here, a lot of them learn about Kwanzaa for the first time and begin celebrating it themselves, because there's being Black looks different in a Black country when everyone looks like you. But when you come here and face American racism and the particular history of this country, it looks different and feels different. So there's a process, people say, of like becoming Black, understanding what it means to be Black in America, because it's different. It's again, especially if you are coming from a predominantly Black country, where you don't have to walk around thinking about your race. Your color is not the first thing that you're concerned about when you walk out the door, if someone's going to judge you based on that, or treat or mistreat you based on that. And so it's also, I think, part of another part of the African American experience, even for people who are from other countries, when they come here and learn what it means to be Black here. And we try to have that connection in like the kinara. I love, because it's often brown and wooden. It literally is supposed to signify roots. And so that's again why the Swahili words are used, and why a lot of African Americans, folks wear dashikis and different things that, because a lot of us don't know exactly where we came from on the continent, but it gives us some kind of connection. It's like something, it's as close as we have for a lot of people. So any kind of connection we have to the continent, and that's often a learning experience for folks of other countries coming here to learn that, kind of how we deal with not knowing our history, not being able to trace ourselves back, but so far. So, but it is complicated, and there's politics there when you make it an international conversation, for sure. So, I mean, there's certainly some complexities that come with it.
I was thinking about that even as you were talking about America, all of the different nationalities that are here, that come together, that have prejudices against other nationalities. And now we are all here in the United States blending. This is a message for everyone.
It truly is. It truly is. We can certainly all benefit from learning about it, knowing about it. I hope more and more that it's taught in schools, just so people of all backgrounds are just aware of what the holiday means to people, what the principles mean, why I celebrate. Because I think people can apply it to their own lives, regardless of their background. And it can help us all be better to each other as Americans and as international citizens. And so I truly hope that that this conversation, that hopefully a lot more of these conversations are happening across the country, across the world, but certainly that Kwanzaa has something that can benefit everyone. So what are some of my favorite experiences or most significant experiences in teaching Kwanzaa to my students? And my favorite one, I would say, is a student of mine who's a senior this year, and I actually asked her to participate, to speak. Like, we have a different students speak on each principle every year and talk about what it means to them personally. And during her first year at Oberlin, she's biracial, Black and white, didn't grow up around her Black family. And part of why she was coming around the Black Cultural Center is she wanted to learn more. She's like, I look Black, but I really don't know a lot about my culture. I wasn't raised around it. I know what I see on TV, or what, I don't have a lot of personal experience. And, we do Kwanzaa in December, right before, because we're on break when Kwanzaa actually happens. So we do it right before the kids go home. And even just in her first semester of college, she gave a beautiful speech about how being in the community, about being embraced, even though she didn't know all the things, even though she didn't know a lot of the cultural points. I'm trying to remember which one she spoke on. I want to say it was Kuji Chakalia, with self-determination. And it was, yes, it was. And it was defining herself and being able to define her own Blackness from a more confident place, having learned more about it, and just kind of giving her some ground to stand on. It really changed her life. And she talked about that, and she was crying when she was, it was a really transformative experience for everyone who was there. Obviously for her, who had been going through this, dealing with her own identity and kind of struggling with that, and to be to come to Oberlin and find this Black Cultural Center, and then to learn about Kwanzaa, it meant so much to her that she could start to lay a foundation for herself as far as being a Black person, just as an individual, just, taking out the politics and what the community should do, and the struggle. It was just being Black. It's difficult for her to, aside from how she looked, she really didn't know much as how to do it from any kind of personal experience. She didn't grow up around any Black people in her family or anything. So that was really deep. And now she's a senior. And so I asked her to come back and now I'm really looking forward to next weekend hearing her speak again now as she's about to graduate, where she's at on that journey. When you talk about Kuji Chakalia's self-determination, just coming into her own as a Black woman and finding herself in a lot of ways. I think it has been a really beautiful journey to watch. Yes, that's probably my favorite.
I have a question. How can myself, my wife, anybody else involved in this topic, what should we know about Kwanzaa that we didn't cover, or just a message to be able to support the message of Kwanzaa?
You're asking me like what you can do to support the message of Kwanzaa?
Yes.
I think just talking about it. I think just encouraging others to talk about it. Maybe, like when it comes, just if it comes up in conversation, or people are talking about holidays, or I don't know if there's anything having to do with Kwanzaa going on in the community that you live in now, but maybe just even asking, hey, is there a Kwanzaa display that's going to be put up? Is there something to make sure that that holiday for people who that might be important to, could we, could we talk about that, or could we have something up about that? And just encouraging people, to read up about, say, hey, this is really interesting. Kind of how you would recommend a good book you read. Hey, you should check this out. You should read more about this. This is a pretty interesting holiday. And I think that is just by person to person, especially from people who trust each other and know each other. Word of mouth can do so much. And you can reach your peers much more easily than I can. Not just because you know them, but because you're of their same group. You can explain things in ways that that they'll get, that maybe I can't explain. They'll receive it differently coming from you than they would coming from me or from someone else, because they know you because of the same generation or the same background or whatever. So I just encourage you to don't undervalue your own, your own, what's the word?
Opinions, attitudes, all of it.
Opinions, attitudes, yes, and the work that you can do. It just, don't sell yourself short, or don't make any assumptions that you can't do it, because there's a lot you can do. Just you'd be surprised how just conversations had, and then that leads to conversation with those people, with different people, and just how that can spread. And a lot of times we associate that with like gossiping or negative things, especially in the world of social media now, but we can also use that for positive things, for good. We can spread good information. We can encourage people to check out things that are positive, that would be helpful to know and to learn, that would be good, that you could get something from. Like you mentioned the principles. I have people who I've talked to about Kwanzaa, and while they may not be up on buying the whole set like I have with the candles and the kinara, they really enjoy learning about the principles, and they talk about the principles and say, hey, that's really interesting. I'm going to start to think more about that. And so there are a lot of possibilities. There are a lot of ways to be supportive and to help spread the word about Kwanzaa without having to, without actually celebrating it. Whether you're of African descent or not, there's a lot to be said for just spreading the word and demystifying the holiday for folks. There are a lot of books. There are a lot of books out there, where from wherever you buy books, there's a brick and mortar bookstore, whether it's the library, whether it's Amazon or whatever website you might use. If you Google Kwanzaa books, there are a lot of things that come up online. If you go into any major bookstore or library, there have been lots of books written on Kwanzaa by people who help start it and get it going, and by scholars who study it. So there's a lot out there, and I'm also encouraging people to start young, to perhaps send grandkids, great nieces and nephews, information about it, so then they're learning about it too. There's a new book for kids that came out by a very famous Black woman who was the president of Spelman College at one point and Bennett College at another point, that she recently co-wrote a children's book on Kwanzaa, and it's on African proverbs, and it's through these things that we can start the kids young. So we're normalizing kids from a younger age, but for adults, there's a lot of reading. There's a lot of books being written about it, and that have been, and the academic articles may be a little bit less accessible unless you subscribe to that kind of resource, but definitely any bookstore, any library, you can find something on Kwanzaa. It's common enough for that, for sure.
It must be very busy in your family. You're busy doing Kwanzaa and everything having to do with Christmas. And what about the Jewish holidays? You have that thrown in there too? Yeah.
I do. I went to the synagogue and to church growing up, so I did.
Yes.
both of those. So now my parents laugh at how busy my Decembers are. But then they also laugh when they say, well, what do you want? I said, well, for which holiday? And they're like, you can pick. There are a few you can choose from. But,
Oh, dear.
but yes, it's busy, but it's fun. And as an educator, I kind of geek out on that. Because because there's such rich history around them all. And so it's fun to think about and to discuss and find connections in new ways. Like you notice the Kinara, just like I said, like the candelabra, we also have a menorah, for Hanukkah. And so
Yes.
I have a beautiful gold menorah, beautiful brown wooden Kinara, and a beautiful candle star thing on top of my Christmas tree. So there's just lots of candles and nothing to catch on fire. We're going to be safe, but yes, I have a lot of fun celebrating a lot of things. And it also gives me an opportunity to share with a lot of my students, with them holidays that they might not celebrate. They might celebrate 1 to 3 of those or none of those. It's
Right.
an educational opportunity for them as well, just to know more about what other people are doing. You don't have to do it too. It's just there's value in just being able, like we talk about, finding our commonalities and respecting each other and coming together as people. I think learning about how we celebrate and what we celebrate and why it's important to us is pretty cool to learn about each other. And so I'm happy to be someone of many backgrounds who can speak to quite a few of those, especially in the month of December.
Thank you so much, Candice. It's lovely to meet you. And thank you for the work that you've created for us to become more familiar with this very important topic.
Thank you very much. It was nice to meet both of you. Hope you enjoy your holiday.
And I think to myself, what a